Hi everyone, this is Darshan Senthil, and today I'm going to be teaching you about quadratics. Now again, quadratics are just like another type of functions. It's not that complicating. It may look a little bit intimidating when you see it because as compared to linear equations, there's about twice as much stuff in quadratics that you will need to know. But it's pretty simple, and I hope I can get you through this alive. Okay, so just stick with me. So this video I'm just going to give you a basic intro as to what quadratics are and how their graphs look. And that's just basically going to be a base. From there we'll look at different forms of quadratics, the different ways you can write a quadratic, how to solve quadratic equations, different ways of solving, etc, etc. How you can, other ways of graphing a quadratic using the different forms. And yeah, that's that. Okay, so let's just get started. So what is a quadratic? So a quadratic is basically any equation any equation or function with x squared as the leading power. Okay, so what I mean by this is basically in any equation, irrespective of what it gives you, if x squared is your leading power, then it's a quadratic. So for example, if you had like y is equal to x cubed minus 6 or y is equal to x plus 24, this would not be a quadratic because here you have a leading power of 3, which is greater than 2, and here you have a leading power of x to the, well, this is the same thing as x to the first. And again, this is not x squared. So these two are not quadratics. So what is a quadratic is something like this: x squared minus 62, because your leading power is 2 and your highest thing is x squared. And also y equals 3x squared minus 64x plus 22. Again, it doesn't matter how complicated it is, but as long as you've got this x squared over here as your leading one, it's going to be a quadratic. Yeah, I could also write it like this: y is equal to 64 minus x squared. But see, as long as you've got your x squared and you've not got anything higher than that, that is a quadratic. Okay. So now let's just take a look at how quadratic graphs appear. So a quadratic function basically has the parent function of y is equal to x squared. And this may look similar to a linear parent function, which I told you in a previous video is y equals x. It's just the same concept. Okay. Okay. The same concept, y is equal to x squared. So you could also write this in a different way, which is f of x equals x squared. And before I go any further, I just wanted to use this chance to make a little distinction between these two. So let's just do that to the side here. So y and f of x are the same thing. There is no difference between y and f of x. They are the same thing, they represent the same quantity, but they're just written differently. So especially as you go into pre-calculus and maybe later into calculus, you will see f of x a lot more than y because it's a little more specific, and sometimes it's a little bit more helpful when you write f of x instead of y. But just so you know, they are the same thing. There is no difference. You could write y equals 6x squared plus 15 just as easily as you could write f of x is equal to 6x squared plus 15. They are one and the same thing. You should not get too confused. Just know the distinction and when you should use what. So I'll leave that up to you. Know how to use these two. Know that these two things exist, that they're the same thing. Okay, so let's just get rid of that though. Okay, and back to the lesson. So as I was saying, this is the parent function of a quadratic equation. So let's just put a graph up first so that we can actually see how that looks. Hope I got that straight, and I think I have. Not bad, close enough. So let's just make these markings first up. We'll need about 4 per line. Again, this is a really rough graph, so if you're actually gonna draw this on a test or a quiz, you should probably make it a lot more nicer than this. So okay, it's not too bad. So let's just make a little table here so we can get some coordinates. We'll do this in a pretty random color, x and y. So let's start from 0. So if x is 0, 0 squared is 0. So 1 squared is 1. 2 squared is 4. 2 squared is 4. So let's go to the negatives now. So negative 1. Negative 1 squared is 1. Because if you square negative 1, you can only get a positive number. So what about negative 2? Again, 4. So just make sure you're not thrown off by the negative. So when it comes to quadratics and squares, there is no, excuse me, you'll always have positive numbers as your domain, as your y value, okay? Unless, of course, you've got some other random mutations I'll talk about later. So let's just plot these now. So 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, and 2, 4. And same thing over here. Negative 2 forwards. Whoops, I messed that up, but no issues. So yeah, it should look something like this. Okay, so this is what we call a parabola. So if you look at like your textbook definition, they'll call this a parabola, and that is what every quadratic function represents. So if you've got a quadratic, you're gonna have a parabola. Of course, there are different forms, so you may get different looking parabolas. Like you might get some that go upside down, some that go wide like a bowl, some that go like really thin like this, some that, like, yeah, these are the types of parabolas that you will get like later on. It actually looks like a smiley face. Okay, so yeah, those are the types of parabolas that you're gonna get, and you will just don't be confused. When you see a parabola, you just know it's a quadratic function. Okay, and if you're wondering where you've seen quadratics before, I'm just gonna give you a little visual aid. McDonald's, every fat kid's favorite diet food. No offense, I love McDonald's too. So basically, in this McDonald's logo, you see that they have two parabolas like this. It's a very convenient visual aid that everybody knows. So, yep, that's what a parabola looks like. So, if you're ever wondering what graph a quadratic function gives you, just ask yourself, where do you buy Big Macs? Okay, so that's about it for how the graphs look. Oh, and if you want to graph a quadratic, all you need to do is just sort of plug in points and get something like this. There's not too much to it. If you want, you can use your graphing calculator and you can sort of get some coordinates from your table there and do a sort of sketch. But just make sure it's accurate and you've got these coordinates set out, because that's what math teachers want to see. Like most of the time, they don't really care about how lovely your graph looks, but they want to see that you've got these points and that you know that the quadratic looks this way. So you see, mine is not totally accurate, but it gives you a good picture. So I'm sure this will get a lot. If you just know how to do this, you'll get your points for sure. And that brings us to the end of this video. Thank you for watching. I know this is a brief introduction to quadratics. I'm going to do more videos that go in depth on the various types and forms in the near future. Okay, so thank you for watching.